it's Elizabeth with Rosebar Embroidery Designs, and today we're going to be doing a tutorial on our newest wallet, the Stargazer. It is a 3 to 4 hooping depending on your hoop size. So if you have an 8x12 or larger, it'll be 3 hoopings, but if you have anything smaller, it will be 4 hoopings. It is a tri-fold wallet with lots of storage. It has 3 zippers. You have 1, 2, and a 3rd zipper right here. So let's go ahead, let's grab our supplies, and let's get started. Alright, so now we're at our craft table. We went ahead and we grabbed our supplies. So this is the first hooping. This is going to be for what we call in the tutorial, the flap. It is the top part of your bag. So this right here is the flap, and this is what we're going to be doing the first hooping on. So you'll need your front piece, another front piece for the inside lining, a top piece, the top lining, as well as the back of our flap and the lining for the inside of the flap and our zipper. I also went ahead and put my magnetic snap in on my bottom piece of fabric. All I did was find my center and go 2 inches down and placed it. This magnetic snap will be completely up to you on how you want to place it and where you want to place it. You can do center, you can do a little bit closer to the top. It is all up to you. I did back it with Pellon SF101 just so it stays in place and it is intact and it will not come apart. If you want to learn how to place a magnetic snap, you can go ahead and there is a link below to our video on how to place a snap, or you can go ahead and click in your top right hand corner and it'll take you directly to the video. As you can see, I already went ahead and ran our placement box for our zipper. Alright, so what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to take our zipper and place it within that box. I am off camera, you guys cannot see this. I'm just adding zipper tape to my zipper so that way it stays. And I don't have to use any other external tape, like masking tape or washi tape. See, I went ahead and I put my 2 strips in. I'm just going to peel it. You can see there. I'm going to go ahead and place my zipper in my box. I am going to tape my zipper to the side of my hoop because I don't want it moving. I'm also using a number 5 zipper. If you want to learn the differences between a number 5 or a number 3 zipper, I will leave a link below for you guys to go ahead and check out that video, or again, you can go ahead and click in your top right hand corner and it'll take you directly to that video. Let's go ahead, let's take this to our hoop. Let's run our placement stitches, or our tack down stitches, where it'll tack down our zipper. Next, what we're going to do, since we ran the tack down for our zipper, we're going to actually take this out of our hoop. We're going to bring it back to our table and we're actually going to cut our zipper. Alright, now that we've taken it off of our hoop, what we're going to do is we're actually going to untape our zipper. We're going to move our zipper about halfway. We're going to cut the edges of our zipper off. We're going to take this back to our hoop and we're going to run our placement stitch, which is just basically the stitch that's going to give us the outline for our flap. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to run our placement stitches for our sides on the zipper. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take it off of our hoop, we're going to bring it back to our table, and we're going to place our side handles on our zipper. Alright, now that we have our hoop out, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our 4 2x2 squares and we're going to be placing them on and running then the tack down. When you're placing them on your squares, you want to make sure they're going in the right direction. So when you open it, you see your pattern. So since this is the top, what I'm going to do, since I marked this as the top, I can go ahead, you can take a pen and just write top, so you know this is your top, and when you open it you're going to see this first. So instead of putting it like this, because when you open it it's going to be upside down, go ahead and flip it. I'm going to put that one right there. I'm going to tape it down into place. Then I'm going to take my next one, do the same thing. Once you finish that, you're going to go ahead and flip it over And you're going to repeat it. Since this is not a directional fabric, it doesn't bother me where I'm going to put them. So I'm just going to kind of put them, I'm just going to put them upside down, because you want to make sure your fabric is right side down, not facing you. And don't worry if you do run a stitch over masking tape, it comes off. It's kind of like tearaway in that aspect. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to take this back to our hoop. We're going to run our placement stitch. Once we're done with that, we're going to take it out of our hoop and we're going to go ahead, we're going to flip these over. Right, now that we went ahead and we ran that, we can take and remove our tape. You're going to fold it over, leaving roughly about a 1/4 of an inch. Tape it back down. You're going to flip it back over. And you're going to do the same thing. Once we finish that, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take it back over to our machine. I like to press, make sure the tape is nice and stuck. We're going to take it back over to our machine. We're going to run our fancy bean stitch, which is just our accent stitch. If you don't want to run the accent stitch, you don't have to. You can go ahead and skip this step. But I want to go ahead and run it, so I'm going to go ahead and run it, and we'll be right back. And we're going to take this to the hoop. Now that we're back at the machine, we're going to go ahead, we're going to run our bean stitches. Alright, so I just went ahead, I removed all the tape. So we removed all of our tape. We're actually going to take our lining pieces for the bottom and we're going to go ahead and attach those. We're going to do this a little different. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tape my star down up here. Since we know we're not stitching up here, we're going to be stitching down here. I'm going to make sure right side is up. So we're going to flip it upside down. We're going to place it right there. You want to make sure it's right at the edge of your zipper line or your zipper tape. I like to tape mine down in place. We're going to flip it over. We're going to do the same thing upside down. And on the back, what you're going to do, you guys can probably can't see it, but right here is the line of our box for our zipper tape. You're going to place it right there. Then you're going to flip it back over, press, make sure all the tape is in the right spots. We're going to take this back to the machine. We're going to be running our placement stitch, which will go right along here. And then after that, we can flip this over. So let's go ahead and let's move to the hoop. Now that we're back at our hoop, we're actually going to be running our tack down stitch, which will tack down our fabric for the bottom of our flap. Now that we ran our tack down, we're going to take this back to our table and we're going to be flipping these over. You can easily do this in the hoop. I don't like to do it in the hoop. That's just a preference. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to remove our tape. And like I said, don't worry too much if your tape gets stuck because it rips out very, very easily. Unless you're me and then it doesn't like to rip out easily apparently. And if some gets left in there, it's not that big of a deal. Unless you're a perfectionist, which I know a lot of people are. So the next thing I like to do is I like to take my basting spray and I like to just spray it slightly just to help it with sticking. I'm going to fold it down but keep it just right at the zipper. Also at this point, I would go ahead and cut your window out for your zipper before you get too deep into your project. All right, and then once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this and we're taking it back to our hoop. We're going to be running our placement stitches for our lining. Again, if you don't want the fancy bean stitch on the front, you can actually go ahead and skip this step and move on to the top. Now that we're back at our hoop, we're going to go ahead, we're going to be running our fancy stitch, which is our bean stitch at the very top and also kind of like our placement stitch to keep the pocket together. Right, once we went ahead and we did that, you only got to see part of it, so I do apologize. We're going to be doing the exact same thing that we did on this side, but to the top. All right, now that we're back at our table, we're going to go ahead and take the tape off of our zipper pull. We're going to flip it over and put it on this side. I'm also going to go ahead and tape up our zipper pull just to make sure nothing happens to it. We're going to go ahead and take our top fabric. Now I just want to talk about placement of your magnetic snap at this point. I made a little bit of a mistake. I put it 2 inches from the top, centered. I really should have put it 2 inches from the bottom, centered, so that way it would sit right about there. So it would sit kind of like right in the middle of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm still gonna use this. It's not a waste. I'm just going to kind of measure out where I want it to go and make sure that where I put it, it's going to be okay, which here it will be. This is also the reason why I like to give you guys extra seam allowances as well as extra big. Like, a lot of people do complain that these fabrics are too big and that it's a lot of waste. Well, this is one of the reasons why I like to give it to you guys, because you never know when you may goof up placing something, because if I was to take this out, I would just ruin this whole piece of fabric and it's trash now. But being creative, I'm going to go ahead and just maneuver where I'm going to place it. Typically, you would be placing it right at the box line. But since I gave you guys a little bit of extra wiggle room, we don't have to really worry about that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over and we're going to add our back piece. Again, you're going to make sure it is right side facing down. Go ahead, tape it. And there you have it. We're going to go ahead and take this to our hoop and we're going to run our tack down for just this inner part right here. All right, now that we're back at the hoop, we're going to go ahead and run the stitching for the top part of our flap. Right, now that we went ahead and we are done with it running our placement, we're going to go ahead and take this back to our table and we're going to flip everything over. All right, now that we're back, we're going to go ahead and remove our tape. If you goof like me and you want, you can go ahead and cut the remainder of this excess. You don't have to, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and run a little bit of a basting and voila. Now the goof is not as bad as we thought it was going to be. Go ahead, run a little bit of tape. Take your tape off. I like to run a little bit of basting. Tape the top. Let's bring it back to our machine. We'll run our tack down for our pocket and then we are on the home stretch of this, guys. All right, now that we're back at our machine, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run our stitches for the pocket. Right, now that we went ahead and we ran that, we're going to go ahead and bring this back to our hoop. We're actually going to go ahead and we're going to be putting our outside back or front, whichever you prefer, and then our lining as well. And then we'll be running our final stitch. All right, guys, we're almost done with hoop 1. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and take our fabric for our outside. We're going to flip it upside down and place it. I know you're all thinking like, why are you flipping it upside down? That doesn't make sense. It will especially if you're using a directional fabric for the outside. When you flip it upside down, your scallops for the flap are going to be on the outside and they're going to be down. So you're going to flip it upside down. Now, if you want this to be the inside right here, so your zipper's on the outside, go ahead and put it upside right. That way when you flip it up, you'll be able to see your design, but you won't have the zipper here, you'll just have the zipper here. So it's completely up to you. So if you want the fun part, no zipper on the outside, flip it upside down. If you want the zipper on the outside, but you want to see directional fabric on the inside, flip it upside right. For this purpose, I am putting it on the outside because I want my zipper to be on the inside. So I want to go ahead, I'm going to do that. Actually, before I do that, we actually want to put your back lining on first. I don't know what I was thinking. Oh, hello. Again, these are really easy to, if you make a little, as I like to call them, little bluggers. You just kind of cut them. I'm not going to worry too much about that right there, just because this is actually going to be for me. But typically, if that did happen, you would just take that out and go ahead and just rerun it and make sure you tape the heck out of the side. But since it's just for me and I'm not going to worry too much about it, I'm just going to put my back lining on. And then I'm going to make sure this needs to be on upside down. Again, upside down if you are putting the zipper on the inside of your wallet, so that way you can see your beautiful fabric, or upside right if you're going to put your zipper on the outside of your wallet. All right, now that we're done, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take this to the machine and run our final stitch. All right, now we're at our machine. We're going to go ahead and run our final tack down stitch. Again, just make sure everything is in place before you run it. We are now done with this inner hoop. We're going to go ahead and take this out. We're going to go ahead and cut it, and let's see how it looks. All right, now that our project's out of the hoop, out of our machine, let's go ahead and take it out of the hoop. Let's go ahead and let's cut it. Let's see how well we did. All right, now that we went ahead, we cut it, I gave myself about 1/4 of an inch, maybe an eighth to 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. We're going to go ahead, stick our hand in, and flip it. Go ahead, remove all the excess tape. You can go ahead if you want, take it to the iron and do a quick iron. But there you have it, guys. So there's the flap. Went ahead, we have our magnetic snap-in, we have our zipper pocket, and if you open it, you can see it is fully lined. And then, so that way when it sits on my wallet, when I make the other part, it's gonna sit like that. And this will be on the inside. Again, if you want the zipper on the outside, make sure you flip accordingly. And that is also in the how-to as well. All right, so let's go ahead and set this aside. We don't need this until hoop 4. All right, so I went ahead and I grabbed everything that we need for hoop 2. We need our card slots. We need 2 of our little side accent pieces. And then we need our lining. We're gonna go ahead and set the lining and the accent pieces aside. We don't need those right now, but we need our card slots. And this is how I like to do my card slots. This is a little bit different from a typical card slot that I have done. As you can see that I have went ahead and I've marked my lines. I used a heat pen. So basically what it means is you write on it, and when you take it to the iron or apply any type of heat, even if it's your finger heat, it disappears. So be very careful, because even if you have finger heat, it will disappear. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your, I believe this is 3 inches. So this is 3 inches by 36. If you want to have more card slots, definitely you can make it longer and just keep following the steps. So what you're going to do, once you get it out and you get your heat pen, go ahead, you're going to mark your first line at 5 inches from the top. Then your second line will be 3 inches from the 5-inch line. Then your third line will be 3.75 inches from your 3-inch line. Then your fourth line is going to be 3.25 inches from your 3.75 inches. Then next, after your fourth line is going to be 3.75. Then after that one, it's going to be the 3.25, then 3.75, then 3.25. That's where I ended. And that gave me a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes. If you want to have more slots, you're going to do odd numbers. So this is 7 boxes. Then you're going to do 2 more boxes for a total of 9 boxes. And then after this, what you're going to do, once you have all your lines marked, make sure your iron is ready and hot. You're going to take your first line, you're going to fold it. You're going to fold it on that line with your iron. Once that's done, you're going to take your next line, you're going to fold it outwards, and then there you have it. And then this next line will also be folded in, and then this line will be folded up. I'm going to go run to the iron really quick, and I'm going to go ahead and get these all folded for you guys. All right, as you can see, my lines have disappeared, but you see the creases. Those were all where all my heat pens were. So now I'm going to go ahead and just kind of fold them in place. Now when I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that I have them even, and they should be at a 1/2 inch, a coordinating 1/2 inch. So as you can see, there's an inch, 1/2 inch is the next line, then the next one will be at a 1/2 inch, and then at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to tape my side really quick because I'm going to show you. Then that way you can stick your cards in and they will be nice and sturdy. All right. I put a piece of tape in the center for one big reason. I don't like them unraveling on me, so I leave it like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hoop up our stabilizer, and we're going to go ahead and start hoop 2. All right, now we're at our hoop. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get started on hoop number 2. The first stitching that we're going to do is actually just our guide. It's to tell us exactly where the top is and where the bottom is. So now, you guys probably can't see, but it's stitched a line right up here where my finger is. This is actually going to be the top of our project. I put this in here specifically just for the fact that to tell you is the top of the project. Other than that, this has no meaning in your project. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to run your card slots, and it's going to stitch out a little box for them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this out. We're going to take it to our table and we're going to be placing our card slots on. All right. I don't know if you guys can see, but right here, there's a line that goes like this. And this is purely just to indicate this is the top right here of the project. So that way, when you're using directional fabrics, you know which way you want to put them. This next stitch is the box for your card slots. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our basting spray, my absolute favorite. Just spray it in. And we're going to go ahead and place our card slot right on in. Now that you have them placed in, go ahead, you're going to be taking this back to your machine. You're going to go ahead and run your placement stitches for them. They're the tack downs. If you have a hard time where your needle likes to catch these, one thing you can do is you can completely tape over where your needle is going to go, so that way your needle doesn't catch on them. Now we're back at our machine. We're going to go ahead, we're going to run our tack down for our card slots. And as you can see, we went ahead and we ran the placement. Again, if your machine's going to have a hard time going over the cards slots, go ahead and stick a piece of tape in there and you should be good to go. Again, as you can see, there is plenty of extra room for you to continue adding card slots. You're just going to continue to follow the same pattern until you have as many card slots as you want. I do believe I only have it for 1, 2, 3. I only have it for 4 card slots. If you want to go to, I believe, 46 inches or even 56 inches, you can potentially get 8 to 9 card slots, maybe even 10. I haven't tried it, but feel free, go ahead and try it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our top piece of fabric that is going to be our accent fabric. We're going to go ahead and just place it lightly right here, and it's going to run our placement stitch. And then we're going to flip it over just like how we have done the others, and it's going to run a bean stitch. So let's go ahead and let's run that. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip it over, and then we'll run our stitching right through here for the bean. I'm just going to quickly take that over to the table. As you can see, I just went ahead and I flipped it upright, and now we're going to go ahead and run the bean stitch for it. Again, if you don't like the bean stitch, you can always go ahead and just flip it over and keep it snug and baste it down, tape it down. You don't have to run that bean stitch. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take our other accent piece of fabric. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to place it on top and run our tack down. I'm going to go ahead and quickly take this back over to the table really quick, and all we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to flip it down just like we did with the first. Again, this is an optional step. You can leave it as is and then just move on to the next step if you like, or you can go ahead and flip it down, run your bean stitch. So once you have your lining fabric on, you're going to make sure it is right side facing your project. And then you're going to go ahead and run your final stitch, which would be just a single line stitch for your lining. Alright, now that it's finished, we're going to go ahead, we're taking it back over to our table, and we will cut it and get it ready. Alright, now that we have our hoop 2 done, we're going to go ahead and take it out of our hoop. We are going to cut it. I'm actually going to use my rotary cutter. I want the clean, crisp edges, so that's what we're going to do. Alright, now that we have it cut, make sure you give yourself about 1/4 of an inch on the top. What we're going to do now is we're going to flip it open. We're going to take it to the iron. We're going to iron this. And then we're going to flip it over, and then we're done. I'll be right back. I'm going to go run it to the iron. Once you have ironed it and you fold it over, you now are ready to start hoop 3. As you can see, here is your lining. Your stitching is on the inside, so it is not noticeable. So go ahead and gather your stuff for hoop 3, and let's go ahead and let's get started. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and start hoop 3. We have our card slots that we finished from hoop 2. Then we have our fabric that's going to be on our outside of our pocket. Then we have our lining fabric. I did make sure that my lining fabrics did match, so that way when I put it on and I looked in my pocket, they were the same fabrics. It's up to you. You don't have to do that. I already went ahead and ran the first stitch for hoop 3, which is just our placement for our lining fabric. So let's go ahead, let's go put our lining fabric on and let's go to our hoop. As you can see, we already went ahead and ran our very first stitch. For our pocket, I'm going to go ahead and put our lining fabric on. We're going to go ahead and run our placement stitch, which is just going to tack down our lining fabric. Now that we went ahead and ran our tack down, our next step is we're actually going to run our placement for our pocket. So let's go ahead and do that. Now that we went ahead and we did our placement for our pocket, we're going to go ahead and take this back to our table, and I'm going to show you how we're going to place the pocket on. All right, so now we went ahead, we have our placement stitch going around for our pocket for our card slots. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our card slots. I like to use these stitch lines as the edge. I'm just going to basically go right up, make sure I'm nice and level. I'm going to go ahead and tape everything down so it does not move. All right, once it's all taped down, let's go ahead, let's bring it back to our hoop, and we're going to go ahead and run the tack down. All right, now that we're back at our hoop, we're going to go ahead and run our tack down. It's just going to run along for our pocket. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to run our final step, which is putting our outside fabric on for our pocket. And here we have our outside fabric. So you want to make sure your lining fabric is upside down, so that way when you put this on your wallet, it will be upside right. So this is only if you're using a directional fabric. If you're not using a directional fabric, you don't have to worry about it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run our final placement stitch, or our final tack down, sorry. Alright, now that we ran our final stitch, we're going to go ahead and bring this back to our table. Alright, so now we have it finished. We're going to go ahead and take it out of our hoop. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it out. Alright, and there you have it. Here is the pocket for the new wallet. And as you can see, it looks like it's upside down, but when you have it in your bag and you have it stitched out, it's going to be upside right. And it will easily fit your phone. Here's my phone. It'll easily fit. Alright, and that does it for hoop 3. Now we're going to move on to hoop 4. Here are all of our goodies for hoop 4. Don't get intimidated. It is a lot, but it's not. We have our flap that we finished from earlier. We have our pocket. We have our outside lining for part of our bag. We have our little handles for the zippers, or for the one zipper. This is the small zipper that we're going to use. Here's the big zipper. We have our outside fabric, our lining. We have our hardware for the outside of the bag. We have our top piece, which will go right here. We have our outside lining and our inside lining. And then we also have our inside pocket lining as well. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and hoop up our machine with our new pieces of stabilizer. And we're going to go ahead and run the very first placement stitch, which is the placement stitch for our zippers. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and run our placement stitches. Alright, so now that we went ahead, we ran our placements for our zipper boxes. We're going to go ahead and take this back to our table, and we're going to be placing our zippers in those boxes. Alright, so I went ahead, we already ran the first placement stitches for our zippers for hoop number 4. As you can see, I don't know how good it will show you, but we went ahead and we ran them. You can see one box here, and then you can see the other boxes right here. What we're going to do is we're going to take our zippers and we're going to place them on. I went ahead and already put my zipper tape on, so we're just going to peel off the backing of the zipper tape, and things like to stick to them. And I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to place it in my first box right down here. I'm going to tape down my zipper pull. Then I'm going to take my tape for my top end, my top part of the bag, or of our wallet, I should say. What I love about the zipper tape is it does keep your tape in. It doesn't feel very sticky, but it keeps your tape on. And then I'm just going to place it on our box. And again, I'm going to tape down my pole over here. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to move to our machine, and we're going to run our placement stitches for our zippers. I'm going to go ahead and take this off of the hoop really quickly. I'm going to take my zipper pull right here and I'm going to move it right in here, and I'm actually going to cut my zipper right here. So I will be right back. So I went ahead and I cut my zipper, and then I moved my pole. We're going to place this back into the hoop. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to just run our placement stitch, which will just outline our bag. Alright, so next what we're going to do is we're still going to keep our project in the hoop. We're going to be running the stitch that's going to run right here for our little pull area for our zipper. Now we're going to take it out of the hoop, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our placements there. Alright, now that we've taken it out of our hoop, we're going to go ahead and get our 2x2 squares. We're going to go ahead, like what we did before on our flap, for our little side pieces right here. We're going to go ahead and take them upside right, or sorry, you're going to make sure the right sides are facing down. So you're going to make sure the right sides are facing down. You're going to go ahead and take your tape. You're going to take your tape and you're going to do that. You're going to take your inside piece at the same time, flip it over. I just ran out of masking tape, so Scotch tape will do. Tape it. I like to make sure that they're nice and snug. We're going to take it back to our machine and we're going to run our stitch. Now that we're back at our machine, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run our tack down stitch. Alright, now that we have ran our tack down stitch, we're going to take it out of our hoop, and we're going to flip our edges over. Alright, now that we went ahead, we ran that tack down, we're going to go ahead and take our tape off. Be gentle as possible. We're going to flip it over, leaving about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. Flip it back over. Make sure that tape's on good and hard. Now we're going to take it back to our machine. We're going to run our bean stitch right here. Again, if you don't want to run your bean stitch on the accent piece, you do not have to. You can skip this step if you want to. It is completely up to you. I like the look of it. I feel like it gives it a little bit more of a polished look, like it's handmade. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. We're going to take it back to the machine. We're going to run that stitch. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to run that stitch. Alright, so next what we're going to do is we're going to bring this back to our table. We're going to be putting on our side piece right here. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove our tape. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our front fabric. We're going to go ahead and place it along the zipper on the left side, so over here. And we're going to leave it right here. We're not going to put anything underneath. This is not going to be an exposed pocket right here, so we don't need to worry about putting anything in behind it. So we're going to go ahead and take this to our machine. We're going to run our placement stitch, and then we're going to fold it over, and then we're going to run our tack down so it stays in place, and then we're going to move over here. So let's go ahead and let's take this to our machine. Alright, so we're just going to remove our tape. We can actually do this part in hoop. We're just going to fold it over. I'm just going to go ahead. Alright, so we just went ahead, we folded it over, and now we're going to go ahead and run the placement stitch that's going to go around the box. Alright, so next we're going to take this back to our table, and we're going to put on the sides. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our pole, we're going to move it to this side, we're going to tape it. I'm going to take my rotary blade and just kind of stick it in between and create a little hole right there, because we're actually going to cut out our zipper on the back. So you went ahead and cut that out. Let's flip it back over. We're going to take our front fabric, do what we did before. We're placing it right at the same length as our zipper tape. If you don't have masking tape, Scotch tape is perfectly fine. I just don't like using it sometimes because I feel like it's not as sticky. Then we're going to go ahead and flip it over. We're going to take our lining fabric and we're going to do the same thing. Flip it over, give it a good press. Now we're going to take it back to our machine. We're going to run our stitch right there, our tack down. All right, so once we're done with the tack down, we're going to go ahead and bring it back to our table. We're going to go ahead and fold these over. All right, now that we're back, we're going to go ahead and remove our tape. And really the tape is just to help keep everything in place so your machine doesn't jump and stitches go flying every which direction. Since we're on the back, we're going to go ahead and take our back piece. We're just going to go right about there. I'm going to tape it in place. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing over here. As you all know, I like to use basting spray. Push it on. I'm going to tape over here. All right. Now we're going to bring it back to our machine because what we're going to do is we're going to run our fancy stitching. It's going to do the bean stitch right here, and then we're just going to do the outline of the box just to tack this all down. Alright, so now that we're done with our tack down, we're going to bring this back to our table and we're going to put our lining piece on for our pocket. Alright, now that we're back, we're going to go ahead, we're going to move our zipper pull, which probably hates me right now because it's like, quit moving me. We're going to move it over here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to flip this over and we're going to put on our lining piece for our pocket. Alright, now that our lining piece is on, I'm going to flip it back over and press and make sure we got all the tape on. And now we're going to take this back to our machine. We're going to be running our pocket tack down. And now that we're back at our machine, we're going to go ahead and run the tack down for our pocket. Alright, we're going to go ahead and bring this over to our table, and we are going to go ahead, we're going to take our pull apart and we're going to add our flap. So what we're going to do is we're just going to remove our tape from the front and the back. If it's over here, I'm not going to worry about it, but I don't want tape on the inside of the project. So these ones can stay. So this piece of tape and the one over here, these can stay. I'm not going to worry too much about them. Now, if you want, you can go ahead, you can trim up some of this excess. I'm not going to, but you can if you want. Our next step is to add our flap. And what we're going to do, I'm going to move our zipper pull to the middle a bit. I'm going to tape it down. It's not really needed for us to tape it down. And what we're going to do is completely up to you on where you want to put. I'm going to go ahead and put my flap right there. I'm going to tape it down. Now that my flap is on, I'm going to take it back to our hoop and we're going to actually run the tack down for it right here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to, we brought our project to our hoop, we put our flap on, we're going to be running our tack down right there. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to run it. Now we're going to go ahead and bring it back to our hoop because we're actually going to be putting on our next piece, which is the piece that is going to hide all of our raw edges. Now that we're back, we went ahead, we ran our tack down for our flap. What we're going to do, and as you can see, it will be slightly over, but don't worry because when you put in your flap, what you're going to do is you're going to snap them together and you're going to place them together. If you want, you can go ahead and take some of your applique scissors. If you want, you can go ahead and cut some of this. I'm going to cut a little bit. Make sure you don't cut yourself. There is a lot of fabric in there, so you probably want to use just some regular scissors. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your top piece that's going to go right here. It's basically going to hide all these raw edges. We're going to flip it and we're going to tape it down. We're going to take it back to our machine. We're going to run another tack down on the same spot. So let's go ahead and take it over to our machine and let's run that tack down. Right now that we're back at our machine, we're going to just go ahead and run our next tack down. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to take this out of, we're going to take this back to our table because we're going to go ahead and flip this over, but I have a fun trick for you guys. All right, now that we're back at our table, we're going to go ahead and remove our tape. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, take our top piece. We are going to fold it in half and then down again. You're going to put it right above the line of your tack down. So what I like to do is add a little quick base spray. I know I love base spray. There's some people that just don't like it and they can't stand it, and that's totally okay. And we're just going to go ahead and tape it down because you want it to be right above. You want to make sure when you're folding that this comes over this line because your next tack down is just going to be your accent line against your bag. So you want to make sure it's there, and this line does serve a little bit of a purpose, so I want to make sure everything's there. So next what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to run this to our machine. We're going to run our tack down right here so this piece is nice and secured. All right, now that we're back on our machine, we're going to go ahead, we're going to run our tack down right here. All right, so now that we're done with that, we're going to take this back to our machine. We're going to put the inside lining on for our main pocket. Right now that we went ahead and we ran this tack down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our tape off. And again, if you use Scotch tape, as you can see, it comes off really, really easy. It's just like using the painter's tape or Scotch tape or whatever. Masking tape, thank you. There we go. I just don't like using Scotch tape because I just feel like it's not as sticky, but it does its job. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. We're going to take our inside lining fabric. Now in the directions, I will tell you that this is a 10 by 14 piece. If you don't like using so much fabric, cut it in half. Do a 10 by 7. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and you're going to iron over a little bit of a fold and then use that and you're going to place it down. Or the other option too is you can cut it in half. You can put this on at the same time that you're putting on your flap and you're just going to leave it up until you get to this part and then you can fold it down over. I don't like doing that because I like to have my backs free when I'm making bags for the big reason I don't want this to get stuck later while I am making the bag and doing my pockets. So that's why. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to just run this to the iron and I'm going to iron about a ½ inch down. Alright, I went ahead and I ironed about a ½ inch down. I'm going to take my basting spray, spray it. Alright, we're going to put it just above that stitch line for our zipper tack down. Take our tape, tape it in place, flip it over, press, make sure it's nice and good. So now we're going to take this to our hoop and we're going to run our tack down for our pocket. All right, now that we're back at our machine, we're going to go ahead and run the tack down for our pocket. All right, now that we have this, we did the placement stitch for our pocket, we're going to go ahead, we're going to move our zipper pull as well as we are going to cut out our zipper, or cut out the stabilizer from behind our zipper. So let's go ahead and bring that back to the hoop. Right now that we're back, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our flap, we're going to flip her over, flip her down. We're going to take our zipper pull, we're just going to move her. I like to hide my zipper pull just in case. I just don't like anything happening to them because these are really nice zipper pulls. So I just like to put a little bit of tape on them. Next, what we're going to do is I'm going to take my small rotary cutter, just go in between, create a little bit of a slit, flip her over, and then we're going to cut our zipper out. I'm going to flip her back over. I'm just going to quickly take this over to the machine really quick. I'm going to run the placements for our hardware as well as our card slots. I'll be right back. All right, I just went ahead and ran our placements right here and then right here. You can't see them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pocket first. Actually, no, I'm going to take our hardware first because this is the easiest of the two. I'm actually going to put it right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pocket for our card slots. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center it right underneath of our flap. And then I'm going to bring our flap over and you can lock them into place. Since I did screw up a little bit with these snaps, I should have brought the snap down a little bit more. So what I originally did was I centered it from the top and then moved 2 inches up, whereas I should have centered it and then moved 2 inches down. So I'm going to have a little bit of a overhang, but that's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to center it, make sure my snaps will snap in place. They will. And then I'm going to tape it down. We're going to take this over to the machine. We're going to run the tack down right here. And then you're going to see the tack down is going to run right here, but it's probably not going to touch this one. It's okay if it doesn't. I'm not worried about it. It's taped down. But the one that we're most worried that we want to focus on is making sure this tack down gets done. All right, so let's go ahead and take this over to our machine. All right, now that we're back at our machine, we're just going to run our tack down for our card slots as well as our hardware. Alright, so we just took our project off. We did run our tack downs. Now what we're going to do, and I actually did mistake. This is not the one that I misplaced. It was this one. I centered this one 2 inches under center, or I should have centered it. That was my mistake, or else we would, the snap would be right here and we'd be right there and we'd be just fine. So And it's completely up to you on where you want to place your snap. So if you're somebody that likes to have your snap way down here, go ahead, place it way down here, but make sure you have them so that they do snap in place together. That is the only thing that you want to make sure when you are using these types of snaps. So now that we're going to go ahead, we're going to be putting on our outside fabric for the back of our bag. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to snap them together. At this point, you want to snap them together, but since I didn't measure properly, which I should have, but I didn't, I should have brought this one down a little bit more into what we're going to do is I'm just going to fold it and tape it. And it's okay if, since this is for me, I'm not going to be too upset that I misplaced my snaps. But make sure when you are putting your flap on, you can put these together when you're putting your flap on to make sure that they're going to be in the right places that you want them to be in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put on my backing, and then I'm going to go ahead and put on my batting. I like to run batting as well as the backing because I feel like it gives the bag a little bit more less flexibility, and it makes it feel a little bit nicer in your hands. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to take this back to our machine. We're going to be running our full around tack down, and then when we come back, we're going to be putting our liner on, and then we will be ready to start cutting. All right, now that we're back at our machine, we're going to go ahead and run our tack down for all around our bag. Right now we're going to go ahead and take this out. We're going to go ahead and put our lining fabric on, and then we'll bring it back to our hoop. All right, now that we're back, if this happens, it's very simple. It's a very easy fix. We're going to go ahead, take our lining fabric, right sides together, tape them on, flip it over, press and seal. Let's take it back to our machine. We're going to run our final stitch. All right, so now that we're done, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take it out, we're gonna take it to our table, and we're gonna start some fun. All right, so we ran our final stitch. Now it is time to see our final product. Go ahead, unhoop your project. Let's start cutting. Give yourself about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, take your excess and throw it away. I always trim my little edges. If you see tape, go ahead, just pull your tape off. No big deal. All right, so now that you have cut it, you're gonna stick your hand in the side where the lining is. You're gonna go for a corner. This is like how I like to do it, especially when you have bulk up here. When you have the bulk up here, I always like to slide my hand in and go for a corner and try and grab that corner, and then I pinch my seams and I just kind of roll those through, so that way you're not going to pop a seam. Then you go over here and you grab, and you do the same thing. You go grab that corner, and at this point you can be a little bit rough, but still hold your seams so you don't pop them. And then you're going to take this and you're kind of just going to roll it through, being gentle, and then you take your hand, stick it in, pull your corners out. Got more tape, but here, look, you didn't pop a single seam. That one's questionable, but still, you didn't pop a seam. Next, I'm going to take, this is hem tape. I'm going to take some, cut a little bit. A little bit of this tape goes a long way. I'm going to put some on one side and put a little on the other side. I like to use hem tape. I don't sew my bags together. If you want to sew them, you're more than welcome. Or if you want to use like heat and bond, or you want to do a ladder stitch, go for it. This is just how I like to close my bags. You're not obligated to do it. Sometimes you have to like stick your finger on it to get the hem tape to stick, because it wants to be a jerk, and it sticks to everything but your project. I like to really press it, and then you're going to go here, take your tape out. Since I did mess up my snaps, it still didn't turn out bad. You have your top, it just folds over just a little bit higher than I would have liked it, which is still not bad. Your pocket, fold it down, you got your card slots, you got another pocket, you got a pocket right here for some money, you got another pocket up here, and you just close it. And there you have it. You just completed your Stargazer bag. And there you guys have it. You just completed your first Stargazer in the Hoop wallet. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. Feel free, like and subscribe. And don't forget, check out our website as well as our Facebook group for more fun. Happy stitching!